Hey, folks, how are you? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Please, if you have a seat, sit down. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Sound like my sister, my best buddy. Well, it's Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. How many of you have lost someone to cancer or are fighting it now? That's why you all know it never fundamentally goes away. And that's why I think for Jill and me and the mayor himself, you know, it's when you start talking about it, you relive it immediately. And it's, but you know what? We're making enormous progress. My prayer, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can as President of the United States to see to it that we end cancer as we know it, and that we can do that. We're within reach. And Mr. Mayor, we do have a lot in common based on our backgrounds, except I only had one daughter get married at one time. And as we say in our fit, bless me, Father, for I have sinned, man. 2. Whoa, 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 whoa. We had to sell the house. Anyway, y'all think I'm kidding, but those of you guys know I'm not joking. But look, Jeannie, the county chair, the Democratic chair, I said to you inside that it's the most important thankless job in American politics, but thank you for doing it. And I also want to thank Jim, Mr. President, President of UAW. There's an expression we have back in little Claymont, Delaware, where I moved from Scranton, and say the UAW is the one that brung me to the dance. In the early days, we had the highest percentage of UAW workers of any state in the nation, including Michigan, because we had such a small population and such a large percentage of our workers. We had the largest GM plant outside of Detroit, and we had the second largest Chrysler plant, and Mopar and Autolite and a whole range of other things. And they're all gone now. They're all gone now. And but they're the first outfit to endorse this 29-year-old kid when I ran, and I won. And also want to thank the UFCW. They've been with me. Roger's here. Roger's the president, and they just had a couple great weeks, a couple great months lately, particularly up in dealing in Massachusetts, where we went up and dealing with Anyway, you stick with it, man. We're coming back. And I make no apologies. I'm a union guy. The folks, and I think people are beginning to realize, and my wife's going to get mad at me for going off the script here a little bit, but you're watching, is that you know, what American workers are beginning to realize is there would be no such thing as a 40-hour week. There would be no such thing as overtime pay. There would be no such thing, and it goes on, were it not for organized labor. And so we owe you, and if I have anything to do with it, y'all are coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, this sounds trite, but Jill and it's really great to be back in Iowa, celebrating Independence Day. You know, it's incredible. There's such incredible promise for America's future here. You know, 243 years ago, when a group of rebels got together in about 25 miles from where I live in a town where Jill is from in Philadelphia, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Sounds corny, but that's what they did. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to a revolutionary idea. We hold these truths self-evident. All men and women are created equal, etc. Again, we learn all those phrases when we're in school, but that's who we are. Ever since then, presidents and patriots have gathered on this 4th of July to reflect on what the greater meaning of this American experiment was, and it's an experiment. In 1821, just a couple of decades after the Revolution, John Quincy Adams proclaimed, quote, America's glory is not dominion, but liberty. Her march is a march of the mind. In 1861, Abraham Lincoln invoked the Declaration to make the Declaration of Independence to make a case for the Civil War. He said, reminding Congress that it will be, quote, a struggle to maintain the world that from and substance of government whose leading objective is to elevate the condition of all men, to lift artificial weights from everyone's shoulders, and to clear the path for a laudable pursuit for everyone. But that's, I know there's high-sounding words you learn in school, but it's who we're supposed to be. 1962, deep in the grip of the Cold War, when I was getting out of high school, John Kennedy made a pilgrimage to Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And he declared this. He said, this nation, conceived in revolution, nurtured by liberty, maturing in independence, has no intention of abdicating its leadership in a worldwide movement for independence to any nation or society committed to systematic human oppression. You know, these three different presidents in vastly different times were united in the faith and the power of this idea. America's an idea, unlike any other country in the world, an idea. Constant in their dedication to the pursuit of humankind's highest ideal, which is liberty. You know, what I wonder, what will Donald Trump say this evening? I mean, I'm being sincere. When he speaks to the nation at an event designed more to stroke his ego than celebrate American ideals. Will he speak to the example America must set for the rest of the world, and we have set in the past? Or will he offer a robust defense of democratic values, as other presidents always have, and the strength in our times of crisis? We don't know the answer to that. Donald Trump, I believe, is incapable of celebrating what makes America great because I don't think he gets it. No, I'm going to explain why. I don't think he gets it. He literally has trouble distinguishing between our allies and our adversaries. No, think about it. Because he doesn't grasp that America is the march of the mind toward greater openness, greater understanding, greater human freedom, and pursue lives of meaning and fulfillment, giving people some breathing room. And if Donald Trump has 8 years in the White House, he's going to forever and fundamentally alter the character of this nation. And we can't let that happen, period. Thank you. And whether or not I'm your nominee, and I hope I will be your nominee, I'm going to work like the devil, whoever the nominee is, if it's not me, to see to it that doesn't happen. Look, when's the last time you can ever recall a reading about a history who embraces dictators and strongmen and fundamentally a rejection of everything our founders wrote about? Vladimir Putin in Russia, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. Their drive to concentrate greater and greater power in their own hands and to silence the opposition, including through brutal assassinations. That's what I call the death of liberty. Last week, Vladimir Putin gave an interview where he crowed, quote, the Western liberal ideal has become obsolete. Okay? But here's Trump's response to that. According to the press, Donald Trump thought he was talking about Democrats in California. Not a joke. Our president doesn't understand the difference between liberals as opposed to conservatives in our political context and liberal as opposed to autocratic systems of government. Because that's what Putin and others stand for. Well, I'm here to tell Vladimir Putin, who I've met a number of times, Donald Trump, anyone want to hear it, the liberal idea is an American ideal. We've never will let it be obsolete. Not as long as we have patriots committed to the higher ideal of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we should be talking about on the 4th of July. The liberal ideal is what drives innovation and entrepreneurship. The liberal ideal aspires art, exploration, human curiosity. That's what we mean by the liberal ideal. And critically, the liberal ideal is what built the free world. It built the free world. The free world is an American design. We created it. together with democratic allies in Europe and Asia after World War II, to hold in check the abuses of power by any one nation, to affirm a collective defense, open economies, human rights. That's why there is NATO, so we wouldn't repeat what happened in World War II. No nation, no single nation could step out and abuse that power. The free world drove the march of democracy, prevented a third great war, protected the territorial integrity and sovereignty of so many small states, allowed unprecedented economic growth and development that the world has never, ever seen, advanced basic human rights and fundamental freedoms in every corner of the world. Ours is a community of values, and it stands in opposition to all who seek to profit from the oppression of other people. That's why Putin wants to destroy it. That's what he's about. That's why he's actively working to tear apart our democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, America is the heart of the free world. That's not hyperbole. We're the heart of the free world. And we have to keep that heart beating strongly and defend it. That's how the 4th of July is best honored, by remembering that our Declaration is the first and foremost call to arms in defense of liberty. If we, the fact that we have to remember, JFK put it best, I think, when he said, ours is not an individual liberty of one, ours is an indivisible liberty of all. So, I honest to God don't believe Donald Trump gets either one of those concepts. My liberty depends on yours. My liberty depends on yours. Our liberty as a nation rests in our ability to assure equal access and equal opportunity, not just for our own children, but for all our children. Our children are the kite strings that lift our national ambitions aloft. We all benefit when all of our children have access. We have to take on the inequities of our system that are causing too many today in America and around the world to question their faith in the ability of democracies to deliver for them. It's not enough to be for political equality. We have to be for economic fairness as well. It's not enough to be against the way Donald Trump conducts himself. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Even his supporters know who he is. The way he assaults the dignity of women, poor people, immigrants, LGBTQ individuals. We have to be against his policies that are further entrenching economic inequity in this nation in addition. Because quite frankly, those policies are literally rigging the system against the middle class and the working class. The bottom's falling out. The majority of Americans no longer think their children will be able to have a life as well as the one they had. If you get a $400 bill in 1 month, the surveys show the vast majority of Americans would either have to borrow the money to take care of it or sell something in order to take care of it. That, too, is an attack on our democracy and our liberty when that happens. I know they call me middle-class Joe. It's not meant as a compliment. But I know who in the hell built the middle. I know who built this country. It was the middle class. It was the middle class. And that's the message I've been carrying across this country, everywhere. And it's all the more clear today, on the day we celebrate our independence. As I said, our country wasn't built by Wall Street CEOs, hedge fund managers. It was built by all of you, by Americans like the neighborhoods I come from, given half a chance. Think about this now. It sounds like political rhetoric, but think about it. Americans given half a chance have never, ever let their country down. Not one time in our history, in war and in peace. That's the history of the journey of America. Giving real people real chances. My dad used to have an expression. We came from, when coal died in Scranton, there were no jobs. My dad was a white-collar worker. If you listen to Barack, you'd think I climbed out of a coal mine with a lunch bucket in my hand. I would have been proud to, but I didn't. But the fact of the matter is, my dad, every time we moved back to Delaware, he was raised from 4th grade to 11th grade before they moved to Scranton. He'd say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. For real, that's what you tell us. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look at your child and say, honey, everything's going to be okay, and mean it. That's what it meant to him. Today, so many people can't do that. And that's what we have to change. That's my North Star. I think we have a moral obligation of our time is to rebuild the middle class, and this time bring everybody along. No matter their race, their gender, their ethnicity, their religion, who they love, where they live, whether they have a disability. And I mean it, everybody along. For me, it's about restoring the dignity of work, people being able to provide security and a little bit of joy for their families. Look, how can a person maintain their dignity if they can't afford to care for their sick child or a family member? A lot of your parents and grandparents, I'm not joking about it, think about it. How can you sustain your dignity if your child has a pre-existing condition? There's nothing you can do to pay for the insurance to take care of them. Or how can you maintain your dignity when your child or someone close to you love who's suffering from a terminal disease and the insurance company comes along and says, time's up, you've outrun your coverage? I can't imagine what Jill and I were doing when our son came back from Iraq with a diagnosis that was of terminal cancer. They told us about months. I couldn't fathom what it would have been like looking at his wife and our 2 grandkids if they had said, you know, time's up. The last 4 months you're on your own in pain. I really mean it. Think about it. So many people have been through that. How can a parent maintain their dignity if their talented, qualified child has an opportunity to go beyond high school, a trade school, community college, but you can't afford to get him there? Remember my dad. He had a good job. He was, I guess we're middle class. Lived in a 3-bedroom split-level house with 4 kids and my grandpa and my mom and dad. It was a happy place. I look back on it now, and I now understand why Mom would never move in with me after Dad passed away. But we took care of that, too. But my point is that I remember how my father felt when I got a chance to go to college, but we didn't have enough money. And he looked at me when he said, I went to the bank to borrow the money, honey, but they won't lend it to me. I'll never forget what he said. He said, I'm so ashamed. I'm so ashamed. I'll never forget the look in his face. Folks, think of all the people today, maybe many of you. How many of you are having a discussion today because of what's going on with the trade war, with what's going on with China now? How many of you are looking around and saying, who's going to tell her she can't go back this semester? We don't have the money. Who's going to say anything? Folks, today's corporate culture in this administration don't care about your dignity. They don't care about economic fairness. They're squeezing the life out of workers. They're making it harder and harder for you to bargain for your own personal worth, not just for unions to be able to bargain. You realize 40% of workers in the United States have to sign a non-compete agreement, a clause when they get hired? These non-compete agreements have one purpose: to hold down wages. It used to be, I just passed the Jimmy John's. Up until I started talking about this, not maybe because I started, but up until that time, Jimmy John's, you'd have to sign, like all fast food folks, you'd have to sign you won't compete. So you couldn't go across town if you get 20 cents more working for McDonald's or Burger King or anyone else and take the job. Now, what in God's name does that have to do with anything other than suppressing wages and increasing profit for corporations? Why do companies classify so many workers, low-wage workers, hourly workers, as management? Well, simple reason. So they don't have to pay overtime. Take more of the profits themselves, buy back their own stock. You know, it cost more than 4 million hourly workers last year $1.2 billion. Hear me now? 4 million workers who were reclassified or had to sign these non-compete agreements found themselves, in terms of reclassification, $1.2 billion less going to them. But where did it go? It went straight into the corporate coffers. highest profit rates they've ever had. I'm not against people making profits, but none of it went to the workers. There used to be a basic bargain. If you contribute to the welfare of the outfit you work with, you got to share in the benefits. Tell me how that's happening today. And speaking of overtime, it's long past time to be a minimum $15 federal minimum wage in America. And folks, it's time we start to reward work over wealth in this country. Let me ask you something. The stock market is roaring. How's it affecting your lives? You guys really up? I mean, really moving? How about that big tax cut Trump and the Republicans passed? Do you feel it? Well, you're going to feel it if we don't win, because it increased the deficit by $2 trillion. Hear me now? Almost $2 trillion. Now what's the excuse? What's the mantra they're hearing? You know, we have these great deficits. We have to cut the safety net. We have to cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Not a joke. When they control the House, that's the budget they put forward. Folks, this is a sham. Look, they've already said it. We can't let it happen. So we need the revenue that Trump has put in the wrong hands to fall back into the communities that need the help. Look, here we are. We have to reverse that tax cut on the super wealthy. As I say to the wealthy people when I'm standing up talking, they're in the room. The last people who need a tax cut are people making $10, $20, $30, $40 million a year. Y'all don't need it. If any of you are in that shape, you don't need the tax cut. And secondly, we need to get rid of these capital gains loopholes here. A just economy, an economy that advances liberty for all, isn't one where the super wealthy pay a lower tax rate than a firefighter or a teacher. Think about it. I mean, I'm being literal now. Because of the way they deal with capital gains for the super wealthy, they pay a lower tax rate. You can be making $200 million and pay a lower tax rate than someone teaching in your public school system. The fourth is also a reminder of an important lesson we learned early in this country. Ben Franklin supposedly said this at the signing in Philadelphia. He said, "We must all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately."
That's right.
Well, that is my message to the Democratic Party and to all people who want to see a change in this administration. We need to unify this country. Right. We have to overcome this status quo of division. That's the way we're going to get things done. We can't do it other than that. We really have to. I know some of my Democrats say, no compromise. Look, folks, we can compromise without compromising our principles. Marshalltown knows that better than anyone else, Mr. Mayor. The way in which you dealt with this god-awful disaster when the tornado hit here. You came together, and there's much more that has to be done. But working together with the city council, local businesses, people, you're well on your way. But this is a place where the federal government also should be much more deeply engaged in natural disaster. Look, when you were working with folks here, Mr. Mayor, it didn't matter if they were Democrats or Republicans. All that mattered is getting Marshalltown back up on its feet and running. You made it happen. You're still making it happen. It goes too slow. But all that stands in our way is a broken political system. Folks, for all our problems, I'm more optimistic today than when I got elected as a 29-year-old kid. I ran for the Senate. I was a local county councilman. And I got elected when I was 27 years old. I didn't want to run, but I promised I'd help the party organize, and I ran a Republican district, assured that I'd never win, and I won. Fortunately, Republicans saw something in me I didn't see. They reapportioned my district to about a 70% Republican district, put me in a position where we say in public life, up or out. And so I decided to either get all in or get all out. But here's why I'm so optimistic, and I was labeled then the young idealist, the optimist, etc. I'm more optimistic about the position we're in as a nation today to lead the 21st century than I've ever been in my life. Folks, let's remember who we are. We not only have the strongest military in the history of the world, no one else is close, not one nation. Our budget, our military is bigger than the 7 next largest economies in the world, militaries. We've led not only by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. That's why people look to America, because of our values and who we are. We have the most productive workers in the world. Our workers in America are 3 times productive as the workers in Asia. North America's energy independent. We have the world's greatest research university. We have more great research universities in the United States of America, here in Iowa and all throughout the country, than all the rest of the world combined. And every major fundamental breakthrough that's changed the lives of people has come out of those universities, monetized by businesses. No other nation in the world can match us if we remember who we are and invest in our people. The only thing that can tear America apart is America itself. And that's what's trying to be done right now to maintain power. Separate us based on race, based on natural origin, based on religion, based on, come on. The only thing that would make us, the liberal ideal, obsolete is if Americans walked away from our ideas in the first place. As I said, folks, when the press says Donald Trump said this about you or that, I said, look, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. I'm not being facetious. They all know who he is. But we got to show them who we are and who I am. So on July the 4th, we got to let the world see who we are. This is the United States of America. This is the nation that willed ourselves into existence with nothing but faith in ourselves and the power of an idea. There's not a single solitary thing we cannot do. Nothing. Not a joke. Think about it. There's nothing we've ever set our mind to as a nation we've not been able to do if we do it together. In conclusion, we all had to learn, and happy to learn, the speech of President Kennedy about going to the moon. And even today, they teach it in our grade schools. The line I remember from the time I was a kid hearing it, when I was in high school, to today, the one that got me the most was the phrase he used. He said, they asked why he was doing it. He said, because we refuse to postpone. I refuse to postpone anymore, leading this country in the direction that we can move to change the nation and change the world. So get up, America. Let's remember who we are, and let's move. And may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Where am I going? Thank you. We can do this. We can do this, I promise you.